but they didn't even have like a base level of understanding people, and that's why, at the end of the day, as much as, and I'm just going to say it, as much as I dislike Donald Trump, sometimes he is brilliant at some of the things that he does to get his point. This is a real estate play. He's a real estate dude. This is all this is. This is a real estate play for him to help his other real estate dudes that he couldn't help before. And what does he do? He's going to call it something like opportunity zone to make us think that there's an opportunity. The man might not understand tropical storms and but when it comes to true deception, right? True deception and the positioning of that, he's got us beat. He's got us beat. And so that's why no one has done as those really, really deep dives into what it really means, right? Because they see the word and they're thinking, this must be a good thing.
Right.
It can only be a good thing. Well, you got to realize where that gift is coming from, because you're going to open that box and the cobra's going to bite you. So those are the things that we have to keep in mind. We've got to dig deep when it comes to this guy and understand that the word opportunity doesn't mean the same thing for him that it does for us. And we have to educate our localities. Now, I'm in a small city of Alexandria, there's at least 5 of me in the city. And so that education is going to be long. And how much time do I really have, though? I don't have that much time. And as they're all thinking, this is going to be awesome, the dollars are being exchanged. Right, the dollars are going. So there's not enough time for me to even get to our city council and our mayor and really present to them like, no. Yeah, opportunity zone all you want. Oz your way out. But understand that when you're working with that developer, you have to make sure that developer has provisions to help save that community in a way that that community wants to be saved. Don't tell me what's good for me. Ask me what is good for me. And sometimes what you decide is good for me is not. Right?
No, that's a question I recognize that. We were talking about, all these guys having planning ideas, but the way I read the regulations and the statute, and this is why we talked to Arthur and tried to do a bill, is that the communities have no input. The governor decides where the zones are, and the investments go in there. As long as they invest and improve a property, there is no rule that a community can do to stop something or change something in an investment.
And I'm sorry, right? And a step further, even like as governors decide what those opportunity zones are, most of them are already considered pathways to development.
Exactly.
Anyway, right? So it's one of those things where are you really doing what's best for communities that can take advantage of Oz, or are you just trying to help people be able to benefit further that are already vested? That have already, in our case, paid $1 during an emergency management time for a building, and you just want to see that particular building gain more value on investment, right? So,
Exactly.
Sorry, I didn't get it.
No, that's fine. No, I completely agree that, the zones were selected as part of this process. The legislation was passed. The first part of it dictated that governors had the responsibility. They could be supported by whomever. It could be mayors or city councils or people individually in the community if that process took place. In some places it did, in lots of places it didn't. So the geography is what it is, and it will not change based on legislation or without legislation to change it, which is not going to happen. So there's no question the communities are the communities. So the question is, within that, can you do things in the communities to the extent that Orlando or wherever is an opportunity zone, how to make the most of it to ensure that the things that you're talking about don't happen is, to me, the best way to approach it. Because otherwise, and I do think that from a pure sort of local government standpoint, there are things that can be done if the local folks so choose, and hopefully motivated by folks in their community, they can pass their own local legislation that would dictate a process that would be required for folks, developers, or whomever, to go through that exists in all places to make it more difficult if it's not something that's supported by the community. Those things happen on a fairly regular basis. That's where I think the activity has to happen, where people in the community meet the local government in that instance. The only thing I would, and I'm going to hesitate to say this because the last thing I'm going to do is support Donald Trump. I'm sure he's not here to do any of that. But this was not his idea, certainly. And there's some history to how he came to want to support it. But this originally came from a whole different place and was really supported, pushed, and legislatively moved along by Cory Booker and Tim Scott, which, for better or worse, was a good, ultimately bipartisan, bicameral bill that needed support. And it so happened that because of a lot of other external issues,
It started good. That's
it became something that Donald Trump agreed to support, at least when it came through the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, notwithstanding all the other challenges. So I think that knowing that it started with a good idea, good intention, and at least in my mind, we still have time to make it work in a lot of places.
How do we explain the time?
Well, the time is that
Explain,
there's,
well, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Explain the time as it relates to a completely blindsided and uneducated community that doesn't even realize what is coming to them. So when you're looking at mobilizing a community, right, that is, somewhat English speaking, right, but English is definitely not their primary language. And you have to mobilize them, then you have to mobilize the local government. How much time do we have? Because that's a lot of education, right?
it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's different in every place because I think that there's probably different levels of awareness and infrastructure. I mean, there are communities that have what I would call a more significant existing planning process. So there's no question that it takes education and an increase in awareness. And I think that part of it goes to what exists in local law as to what anybody, a business owner, a developer, is required to do to get anything done under normal circumstances. And evaluating what that looks like and whether or not you need further what I'll call impediments, because that's what it would be, to slow down the process to allow for a more engaged community effort. And it's hard work, there's no question. I completely agree with you. It's hard work, and in a lot of places, it won't happen. We have seen, though, in places where, at a minimum, there's requirements around aspects of a permitting process that include how hiring needs to occur for, if it's real estate, the contracting aspects, for opportunities to contribute to workforce development programs as part of the process and in an effort to get permits and other things made available. So those are the kinds of things that you have to do. In a lot of places, those are things you have to do anyway to develop in those communities. So that wouldn't change with this. It would just be maybe more necessary. More, yeah.
So, let me ask Arthur, in your district, this has been going on, and like you said, the boss saw it and realized it was a bad deal. Have you been approached by people trying to do something in your area? Do you know what, have you heard any projects that?
No, I mean, and to the point that I think that Ira made very well, we were never approached. The congressional office, none of the congressional offices, at least on the D side, I can't speak to my colleagues on the Republican side, just because I didn't talk to them about this specifically. But the next day, when the Opportunity Zone law came into effect, I think for 30 days, if I recall, so 30 days in which the governor the governor of each state was allowed to put in the census tract, the zones for the census tract. Our governor surreptitiously did it within 1 week. So we had no time to consult, no time to do anything. By the time we knew there was an opportunity for us to provide information, it was already done. We provided the information, but at that point, once those zones are put in, that's it. And so, as I mentioned before, it's 4%. We have about 2 opportunity zones that are on the fringe of our district, largely affecting rural areas, not the urban areas, but the rural areas in Newton County. So it's not really doing what it's intended to do, just by what we're seeing. And I think it's disingenuous, well, not disingenuous, but it is we're hoping and praying, right? If we take the tack that we're going to let the local legislature, the local community provide regulations, only because if you're an economically rational actor, you're going to want to make more money. You're going to want to see the return on investment. You're going to want to make more money. You're not looking out for D&I unless you're required to do it. And so far, there is no requirement in the legislation to do that, which is why, again, enter Mr. Johnson's legislation. He put in specific specific requirements that diversity be involved at every level of the transaction, and the proceeds would go back to the community. So it's the antithesis of economically rational. It is really impactful, economically impactful for that jurisdiction.